I still remember the moment Greg looked right at me. His face was stern. It was 9 p.m. and the office lights were dim. I had just said, "No, I can't work another unpaid weekend." My hands shook, but I stood firm. Greg frowned, then slammed his hand on the table. He said, "If you won't stay on, you're showing everyone here you don't care." My stomach twisted. My coworkers stared at their laptops, pretending not to hear. I could almost see them wishing I would give in, but my body screamed for rest. I was exhausted. Greg wouldn't let it go. "We're a family," he said. "Families sacrifice together." I tried to speak, but he pointed at the door. "Either be a team player or get out." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to blink. I heard my own voice, quiet but clear. "I won't do free work anymore." Greg's face turned red. Then he told me I was fired, just like that. The words stung like a punch. Everyone fell silent. I grabbed my bag, shaking. I didn't say goodbye. My world spun as I stepped into the cold hallway, fired for standing up for myself. I walked to my car in a daze. My breath came in short gasps and my chest felt tight. The parking lot was almost empty. Everyone was still inside, probably finishing those unpaid hours I refused to accept. My heart was heavy. I looked back at the tall building. My mind replayed the moment Greg fired me, right in front of the whole team. Not a single person had said a word. I saw Jordan, my mentee, glance my way for just a second. I'd trained him, helped him get that job, but he lowered his eyes and did nothing. Inside my car, I finally let out a shaky breath. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. For months, I had poured my life into building an AI framework. I had spent late nights perfecting the code, pushing updates, and making sure everything ran smoothly. My laptop bag rested on the passenger seat. Inside was a flash drive with every version of my code. They might have fired me, but I still had my work. Greg believed he could steal my effort. He thought I'd just walk away. But I wasn't done. I was only getting started. The next morning, I got an email from HR. It came with a polite note: "Please sign the attached documents to finalize your exit." When I opened the PDF, I saw the words "Non-Disclosure Agreement" and "All intellectual property belongs to the company." My blood ran cold. They wanted me to sign away my rights to the AI framework I had built. I scrolled through the pages, and it was all legal jargon. But one clause stood out. It claimed that anything I created during my tenure belonged to them. I knew better. I had tested and drafted that AI code on my own time. I used my personal laptop for most of the foundational work, so I wasn't going to sign away my ownership. Still, the document rattled me. It felt like a trapdoor, designed to swallow my life's work. I took a deep breath and called my attorney friend Lisa. I sent her the files. 15 minutes later, she texted back, "Do not sign. They have no right to your code." I leaned back, relief flooding my veins. If they wanted a fight, I would be ready. I decided to vanish for a while. My plan was to work quietly, and I didn't want Greg or anyone else to track me. First, I locked down all my social media accounts. I made my LinkedIn private and removed the company name from my profile. Then I set up a brand new LLC. I called it Zenith Intelligence. It was a simple process, but it felt like a fresh start. I didn't broadcast it to anyone. I stayed under the radar. If they didn't see me, they might forget I even existed. Meanwhile, I started to rebuild my AI framework from scratch. I wanted a version that was entirely mine, with no possible claim from my old job. I named it Athena. The name felt strong and wise. Each line of code I wrote, I documented carefully, saving notes, dates, and times. No one knew where I lived now. I had moved to a small studio apartment to cut costs. I worked late into the night, the glow of my laptop lighting up the cramped space. Every tap on my keyboard felt like a step toward justice. I was invisible but determined. Weeks passed, and I heard nothing from my old workplace. Then an ex-colleague sent me a cryptic text. "They're stuck. The code isn't working." I pictured them in the sleek, glass-walled conference room, trying to run demos using my old scripts. But those scripts required a special key. I had it. They did not. Jordan, who once admired my work, was now in charge of it. He had been promoted when I left, but he was young and inexperienced. He didn't know the secrets hidden in each file. Greg must have been furious, pacing around, demanding results. I felt a spark of satisfaction. They needed me. They had fired me, yet they couldn't unlock my framework. I sipped my coffee and watched the night sky through my studio's tiny window. My phone buzzed again. Another message. They're trying to contact you. I didn't reply. Let them sweat. They had fired me without a second thought. Now they were learning just how much they depended on what I had built. I closed my phone and opened Athena's code. The lines glowed on my screen, each one a promise of my future. I smiled. They wouldn't take this from me. One early morning, I found a polite email from Greg in my inbox. His tone was unnatural, like an actor pretending to be friendly. "Hope you're doing well," it read. "We'd love to reconnect." I stared at my screen. I could imagine Greg's stiff expression as he typed. He knew the system was half finished without my help. Investors were waiting for a big demo, but that demo could never succeed if the code kept crashing. For a moment, I was tempted to reply. I wanted to ask, "You fired me, remember?" But I held back. I clicked delete. I would not give Greg the satisfaction of a response. Instead, I prepared a cease and desist letter with the help of Lisa. We outlined the key points. The code was mine. They had no legal right to use it. If they tried, I would sue. Then I sent it to Greg's office address. The letter was short but firm. I felt my pulse quicken. I was done playing nice. They had set these rules, and I would use them to protect myself. I closed my laptop, my heart steady. A quiet thrill washed over me. This was my fight now. Days later, rumors spread that the investors were growing uneasy. They had expected a prototype by now, a glimpse of the AI that Greg had bragged about, but nothing was ready. The code was a mess without me. At the same time, I heard whispers that Greg had started telling people I wasn't the true creator. He claimed I had only supported the project, not led it. The lie made my blood boil. I had built the entire foundation of that AI. He was trying to erase me. A friend in the legal department told me they're going to fake a demo. My friend sounded worried. Greg planned to patch together a few lines of code to show something working, just to keep investors calm. I sat in my small apartment, reading over Slack logs and email exchanges where I had clearly authored every significant piece of code. I saved them in a folder labeled Evidence. I wanted to be ready if they tried to push me. I felt a swirl of anger and determination. Greg was planting seeds of doubt about my work, but soon the truth would sprout where everyone could see it. One morning, my inbox lit up with a large, anonymous file transfer. The subject line read, "You deserve to see this." My heart skipped a beat. I almost deleted it, but something told me to open it. It contained a folder of secret recordings and meeting notes. In the recordings, I heard Greg talking to the team. He said, "Don't worry, we can claim her code as ours. Nobody will believe her." Then he laughed, like I was a joke. My jaw clenched. My eyes stung with tears. His arrogance was on full display. He had planned to steal my work and call me worthless. The file also showed an internal slide deck for the next investor meeting. Almost every slide used my original diagrams and notes. I felt my pulse race. This was the proof I needed. I typed a quick reply. "Thank you. I won't forget this." I didn't know who sent it, but I silently thanked them. I saved everything in a safe place. Greg had no idea how badly he had trapped himself. Soon I would make sure the whole world knew the truth. I decided to pitch Athena to another tech company. They were small but growing fast, always looking for fresh ideas. I scheduled a meeting with their CTO, Mark, who was known for spotting talent. We met over video chat. I explained my background, leaving out the messy details but focusing on my AI's potential. I showed him a brief demo of Athena. Mark leaned closer to the camera, eyes lighting up. He asked, "So why aren't you still at your old job?" I gave him a short, honest reply. "They didn't value me. I built the code, but they wanted me to work for free." Mark nodded slowly, as if filing that information away. He requested a deeper look at Athena. I walked him through the key points. By the end, he looked impressed. "I like it," he said. "We've been wanting to poach talent from your old company anyway." When we ended the call, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe I had found a new team, one that respected my work. And if this partnership happened, it could strike a blow against Greg's attempts to claim my code. I couldn't wait. Late one night, my phone buzzed. It was Jordan. I hadn't heard from him since the day I was fired. The message was simple. "I'm sorry, can we talk?" I hesitated. Jordan had been my mentee. We spent hours together debugging code, discussing new features, and dreaming big. Then he stood by silently while Greg humiliated me. Curiosity won out. I replied, "Sure." He called me immediately, his voice shaky. He confessed, "I feel terrible. The code is falling apart. Greg is lying to everyone." I felt a rush of anger, but also pity. Jordan sounded young and scared. He admitted, "I never wanted this. I tried to speak up. He threatened to fire me too." I took a breath. "Then do the right thing now," I said. "If you really want to help, you need to be honest about what happened." He paused for a long moment. Finally he whispered, "I will." We hung up and I stared at my phone. I wondered if Jordan would keep his word or if he was just trying to ease his guilt. Only time would tell. The competitor company moved fast. Within a week, Mark contacted me again. He offered me a contract to develop Athena under their banner. If my code worked as promised, they would pour in funding and resources. He said, "We can roll this out to major clients." I gulped. This was a huge step, but it felt right. My heart pounded with excitement. I agreed, signing the contract with a shaky hand. Suddenly, I had a real team and real backing. Word spread quickly that I was working with a serious competitor. My new group gave me a small, dedicated squad. We tested Athena day and night. Each successful test felt like a slingshot being pulled back, ready to launch. Meanwhile, Greg's company was losing ground. Rumors said investors were annoyed. They wanted to see the AI that Greg had promised. But he couldn't deliver. Their half-baked prototype kept crashing. An industry blog picked up on our competitor's partnership with me. They wrote, "Is this new startup the next big thing in AI?" I saw the article and smiled. I was finally recognized. And Greg's lies would soon crumble against the rising success of Athena. News of Athena spread like wildfire among tech circles. Everyone wanted a piece of the next great AI platform. Meanwhile, Greg's team scrambled. They kept promising a demo, but the date kept getting pushed back. I heard whispers that investors were threatening to pull out if they didn't see progress. Greg tried to spin it as a minor delay, but no one believed him. He tried to blame the dev team, but they couldn't fix the code. It was my architecture, and he had fired me. Articles started appearing, comparing Athena's smooth performance to Greg's vaporware. People asked, why didn't they keep the original developer? Greg must have been furious. The board demanded answers. Inside my new office, I felt a mix of pride and nervous energy. Athena was working well, but I was still preparing for any legal backlash. We had a fortress of evidence proving that I was the creator. Then I heard from a friend. Greg is freaking out. He's losing big investors. They want to meet Athena's real inventor. My hand tightened around my phone. This was only the beginning, and Greg knew it. An emergency board meeting took place at Greg's company. I wasn't there, but I got a detailed account from someone inside. Greg sat at the long oak table, sweat beading on his forehead. The board members grilled him on the missing prototype, the delay, and the fiasco with the old code. One director slammed a stack of papers on the table, demanding, "Why did we fire our lead developer?" Another read from a printout of my cease and desist letter. Greg fumbled for excuses, saying I was difficult and uncooperative. But the board members were not fooled. They had evidence that I wrote every major line of code. Greg's face turned white. He tried to save himself by promising a fix. But time was running out. Then, in a desperate move, he announced, "We'll sue her. That's our best chance to get the code back." I heard about this the same day. My friend texted me the news. My heart pounded, but I wasn't scared. I had documented everything. If Greg wanted to sue me, he'd have to face the truth in court. I closed my eyes and smiled. This was my moment to stand strong. As predicted, the lawsuit arrived in my mailbox a week later. Greg's company accused me of stealing their property. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. They wanted everything: my code, my profits, and even an injunction to stop me from using their AI. But I was ready. My attorney, Lisa, had gathered all the evidence we needed. We filed a counterclaim, showing the actual timeline of the code's creation. Our logs, Slack messages, and design docs proved it was always my project. Then we revealed Greg's attempts to force me to work unpaid hours. We exposed his decision to fire me in front of witnesses, and we listed the direct threats he had made. Our response flipped the script. We showed the court that the real theft was his. He had stolen my time and tried to claim my invention. Suddenly, the lawsuit changed direction. Greg's lawyers seemed stunned by the depth of our evidence. A judge set a hearing to see if my counterclaim was valid. I felt calm. I knew the truth, and I sensed that Greg had stepped onto a legal landmine of his own making. A few days later, leaked emails from Greg's company appeared on a tech news site. The emails showed how he planned to spin the story to the press. He called me a disgruntled ex-employee. He lied about me refusing to work, painting me as lazy. He even joked about blacklisting me in the industry. People in the comments section erupted in outrage. They had seen my public demos of Athena. They recognized me as a talented developer. Now they saw Greg as a bully. His company's reputation took a huge hit. Investors began to flee, cutting ties to avoid bad publicity. Media outlets started digging deeper. They found workers who claimed toxic management and unfair overtime practices. Suddenly, my fight was no longer just about me. It was about a culture of exploitation. I received a formal letter from Greg's board offering a public apology if I dropped the lawsuit. I laughed when I read it. An apology meant nothing without true accountability. I refused to accept their half-hearted deal. I felt the walls closing in on Greg. He had so many enemies now, and I stood at the gate, holding my code in hand, ready for battle. The next major event was a private decision. Lisa and I sat at a plain table in a small conference room. Jordan walked in, shoulders slumped, eyes down. He looked terrified. When the court reporter asked him to state his role, he said softly, "I was promoted after Alina was fired." Then he began to explain how Greg had pushed him to say he co-created the code. Jordan looked at me once, guilt written all over his face. He admitted he was afraid for his job. Greg had threatened him, saying, "You better back me up if you want to keep your career." Jordan's hands shook as he recounted how he had watched me do the real work, line by line. "Alena was the brains behind the system," he said firmly. Those words sent a rush of relief through me. It was the confirmation we needed. The deposition ended with Jordan apologizing to me. I nodded, not sure what to say. After he left, I felt the weight lift from my heart. Greg's case was crumbling from the inside. The truth had finally been spoken under oath. While the legal battle continued, I decided to speak out. I wrote a short article on Medium titled "The Work I Was Fired For." I began by describing the day Greg told me I had no place there. Then I explained how I built the AI, how many late nights I spent perfecting it, and how I refused to sign away my invention. I kept the tone factual but personal. I mentioned the fear I felt when I stood up for myself, and I highlighted how important it is to protect your own ideas, especially if you're in a tough workplace. Within hours, the post started trending. People shared it on social media with comments like, "We stand with you." Tech influencers praised my courage. My inbox flooded with supportive messages from other developers who had faced similar fights. By the end of the day, major websites picked up the story. They wrote headlines like, "Developer reclaims her invention after toxic firing." Some even called me a hero, though I didn't feel like one. I just felt relieved that my voice was no longer silenced. I was telling my story on my own terms. After my Medium post went viral, I got requests for interviews from business podcasts, local news channels, even a national TV spot. I was nervous. I wasn't used to all this attention, but Lisa said it would help our case, so I agreed to a major tech podcast. The host asked me gentle questions at first. How I got into coding, why I loved creating AI. Then we dug into the bigger topic, workplace exploitation. I explained how companies sometimes expect endless overtime and can punish those who resist. I spoke about how I was fired for saying no. My voice trembled at times, but I stayed steady. By the end, the host thanked me. "Your story is going to help a lot of people," she said. Listeners flooded the comment section with praise and shock. Many shared their own stories. That night, I appeared on a segment of CNN Business. It was surreal. I sat in a small home studio answering questions live. My phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, family, and old classmates reached out in support. Greg's name was all over the news, but for the wrong reasons. The public saw his company as the poster child for greedy practices. I felt vindicated. Not long after the media storm, I received an email from Greg. It was longer than the last one, filled with apologies and sweet promises. He said the board was considering rehiring me. He offered double my old salary and a fancy title, Lead Innovation Director. I read it twice, feeling a mix of amusement and disgust. Did he think money would fix everything? He had stolen my work, fired me in front of everyone, and then tried to sue me. Now that I was gaining recognition, he wanted me back. I typed a simple reply, "No, thank you. I wish you well." Then I forwarded the email to a tech journalist who had followed my story. They published a piece titled "Fired Developer Now Courted by Former Boss." The internet exploded with mockery aimed at Greg. People called it shameless and desperate. I felt a deep sense of closure. I didn't need his approval or his job offer. I had found my own way. My worth was never tied to his company. For the first time since I was fired, I felt completely free. My new partner company arranged a tech summit in San Francisco. They invited me to speak on a panel. I stood on a wide stage, staring out at a sea of faces. I gripped the microphone tightly, my voice quivering with nerves. But once I began to talk about Athena, I found my flow. I described how it was meant to revolutionize data analysis. I told them how I almost lost it to corporate greed. The crowd listened closely. Afterward, people surrounded me, asking questions about the future of Athena. They wanted to know how I felt now that I had broken free. I told them, when it's your creation, no one can truly steal it if you stand your ground. Cameras flashed, and I felt proud. By nightfall, articles popped up praising my presentation. They said I brought both technical insight and a powerful personal story. A huge wave of positive press came for both me and my partner company. I remembered how helpless I felt that night Greg fired me. Now I was speaking at major summits, recognized for my work. It proved that real talent can't be erased. With my new funding and a growing network, I set up a small office for Athena's development. It was a sunny space filled with whiteboards, computers, and creative energy. I hired 4 talented people to join my team. Each one specialized in different parts of AI and machine learning. I had a quiet dilemma. Jordan reached out again, asking if I needed more help. He had apologized many times, and I believed he was truly remorseful. My gut told me he could be a great developer if guided right. So I took a chance and offered him a position. When he arrived on his first day, he looked nervous and thankful all at once. He said, "I won't let you down." I just nodded. This wasn't about holding grudges. It was about growing something better. In our office, we coded side by side, building new features for Athena. The tension from the past was there, but it felt smaller now. We were all focused on a brighter future. Day by day, the system improved. I saw how real collaboration could flourish when trust replaced fear. After months of hard work, we sent out the final paperwork to secure a provisional patent for Athena. I remember pressing submit on the online form. My palms were damp. It felt like I was locking in my rights once and for all. To celebrate, I took the team out to a small local restaurant. We toasted with soda and laughed about the crazy journey. I kept thinking about how none of this would have happened if I'd stayed quiet under Greg's thumb. The next day, we received confirmation that our patent application was in the system. It was provisional, but it gave us a strong layer of protection. I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. Athena belonged to a team now, and one day it would help others too. I started a program to mentor young developers, especially women who worried about losing their work to big companies. I shared my story to warn them, always keep records and never sign away your soul. That same week, I got an email from a major tech conference. They wanted me to give a keynote talk about Athena. The recognition felt surreal. A week before the conference, my inbox flashed with a new message from Greg. It was long, almost rambling. He started with, "I'm sorry." Then he explained how he felt pressured by deadlines and worried about losing his position. He blamed stress, the board, and even the economy. He wrote, "I never should have fired you. You were the star of the team." He mentioned how the lawsuit had backfired, how he regretted trying to steal my code. He said he wished he could change the past. I read it twice, feeling strange. Part of me was angry. Another part felt sad for him. But I had moved on. I didn't need this apology to heal. My success had come from my own effort, not his guilt. I simply archived the email. There was nothing else to say. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. I had a new life, a new team, and a new sense of purpose. Greg's apology might have been sincere, but it didn't matter now. I breathed out, letting go of the final bit of bitterness in my heart. The night before our first major international deal closed, I sat on the rooftop of my apartment building with my co-founder Mark. We had grown close, working together every day to improve Athena. The city lights sparkled below us. Mark asked, "Do you think it was worth all the trouble?" I paused, thinking about the stress, the tears, and the moments of fear. Then I nodded. "Yes," I said. "I'd do it all again to protect what I created." We sat in silence, each of us lost in thought. I remembered how powerless I felt when Greg fired me, how the humiliation burned my soul. But that was the spark that lit this entire journey. Now I had a strong team, a growing company, and a product that was shaping the future of AI. Quiet power. That was the best way to describe how I felt. I didn't need to scream for vengeance. I simply worked in silence, letting results speak for me. And the results were undeniable. Athena was real. It was mine, and it was changing everything. We stood up to leave. I felt a sense of peace that I had never known before. A month before my next investor meeting, Greg faced his biggest blow. His board fired him after their stock price dropped to a point they could not take it anymore. Half of the company's clients, including their largest, pulled out because, without me and my code, the system wasn't solving their problems anymore. Angry investors wanted a new leader, and Greg was forced to resign in disgrace. He was even blacklisted in the tech industry as articles carried news with the headlines like, "CEO ousted after AI scandal." I couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. Meanwhile, my own company flourished. We set clear policies. No one was to work overtime without proper pay. If anyone chose to stay late, they were rewarded with generous compensation. We believed happy developers built stronger products. Word spread fast, and top talent reached out to us, saying, "I love what you stand for." As I stepped outside, I thought of Greg's downfall. I had risen above his cruelty, forging a company grounded in fairness. Finally, everything was mine.